finally underway. We have already had some fantastic football games, which is exactly why we are right here convening on this Saturday while more great college football games are going. We need to briefly talk about some of the games we've seen because there were some things that stood out to me, especially in that Colorado TCU game. That's a game we really need to dive into. It was a ton of fun to watch. We need to talk about Oklahoma absolutely demolishing Arkansas State. What did we see in that game? If you're a Sooner fan, there's no way you didn't watch that game and say, hey, that was a ton of fun. I'm ready for this season, which is exactly what those type of games are for. We need to talk lightly about Tennessee and then just talk college football in general. Hope you all have a good time in here. Hit the chat. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you thought about the games. There's no better place for us to start than TCU in Colorado, because I have been one to say Colorado is going to be a better team than a lot of people anticipated. I have been one to say Coach Prime was going to do a better job than a lot of people anticipated, but I've still remained steadfast in saying, but we also need to understand he's got a lot of work to do. And that's not a result of anything he did. He is inheriting a program that is 1-11. He is inheriting a program that's desperate to establish a winning culture. It's not a program that just recently got away from a winning culture and now he can kind of find some semblances of it and get it started again. No. He has to come in there day dot and start getting things going his way. And what a way to kick off the season. Let's start with that Colorado offense. Sean Lewis and Coach Prime deserve so much applause for the way they had that unit, how ready they were. The plays Sean Lewis was calling, I mean, it looked like we were week 3, week 4 already. He was in his bag in the best way possible because there are a lot of weapons on that Colorado offense. One guy that instantly stood out to me was Dylan Edwards, the true freshman, someone who we've talked extensively is going to be lightning in that offense. And he showed you today, it's not just going to be as a running back. They're going to get him involved in the passing game, and he is going to make some incredible plays. But we can't talk about the offense for Colorado and not talk about Shadeur Sanders. Ladies and gentlemen, what a game by the young man. He was on fire. And I can sit here and talk to you all day long about the athletic ability he possesses, about some of the throws he was making. And all of that is true and all of that is well placed, but that's not where the conversation needs to begin. That's certainly a big part of the conversation. The mental aspect of his game was really impressive to watch today. One thing we talk about here on the channel all the time, playing quarterback, a lot of the times it's about understanding what your offensive scheme is trying to get at and take what the offense and more importantly, what the defense is giving you. Shadeur Sanders displayed a supreme understanding of that today. He would hit the underneath, lull that defense to sleep, and then go right over top. And he was dotting some of those wide receivers up. They had a few inopportune drops. That's something you hope will get cleaned up when you look at the wide receivers they have. Jimmy Horn Jr. had a drop. Xavier Weaver had a drop. Those guys will get that cleaned up. They were very talented wide receivers during their last stop. I've been very high on the acquisitions. And Travis Hunter, we need to go into a whole segment about him. But Shadeur Sanders was hyper impressive. The football IQ he displayed is exactly what you want to see. And I know, as happy as Coach Prime has to be, and deservedly so, first and foremost, seeing your quarterback go out there do that as you stun a ranked team in TCU who just played for the national championship. And in the interest of fairness, let's be all transparent here. TCU is a team that had to replace a lot. But Chandler Morris is a veteran quarterback in college football. He is a guy that knows the game. TCU is a team that, yes, they have to replace a lot, but their head coach is still there. I understand they have to replace Garrett Riley, but they had more continuity than did Colorado. You're talking about a Colorado Buffalo team that was largely built through the transfer portal, almost entirely built through the transfer portal, and a coaching staff that largely wasn't together last year. So I understand, if we're being as transparent as possible, TCU was not the same TCU from last year, but nor was Colorado the same Colorado from last year. So that, while it's a point that we need to understand, is a little bit of a moot point in my opinion, because it cuts both ways. TCU didn't have as much transition as the Buffaloes did. And TCU is still going to be an exciting football team. Loved seeing Trey Sanders out there for the Horned Frogs, getting active, generating points. He's someone that if you've been around the channel, you know I would love nothing more than to see him go for over 1,000 yards. What an incredible football player. What an incredible story in college football. Before we continue on the praise of Shadeur Sanders, and we're going to get there, we're not done there. We need to understand Trey Sanders, because if you want to ask me, Ty, what's one of the best stories in college football? Trey Sanders has got to be up there. The young man came from IMG Academy as a 5-star recruit, went to the University of Alabama, turned heads when he got to campus, only to have an unfortunate injury, broke a bone in his foot. Sidelined him for his entire freshman campaign. That was fine. He kept his head up, grinded, worked, was an absolute team player, and got back healthy. Worked his way back into the rotation, and during a break, he went back home during his sophomore year to visit family, only to be in a car crash that almost cost him his life. Broke his hip. Major damage to the leg. You know what Trey Sanders did? He put his head down. He went back to the University of Alabama. He went back to that locker room, and he worked. After that, got back in the rotation at the University of Alabama, played a full season with them, and then looked towards the transfer portal. That is one of the greatest stories of determination and of heart you can find in college football. And it's a big reason why I will forever root for Trey Sanders. It was awesome seeing when he went down. Thankfully, the injury wasn't serious enough to where it kept him out of the game. He was able to keep going. You saw Sonny Dykes and Coach Prime coming to midfield. And one thing I don't understand, I've never understood it, but what better time to address it? This whole notion that people don't like Coach Prime because they say he's just not a good guy. If that's the case, why does everybody speak so highly of him? Why does everybody speak so highly of him? You had the two coaches meeting at midfield when a player is down so that they could talk to the player, make sure he was good, and then have a come together moment with each other, which was just awesome to see. But thankfully, Trey Sanders was okay. Getting back to Shadeur Sanders, we talk about the decision making. He made all the right decisions today, but his accuracy was also on point. When you have a quarterback that understands what the offense is asking, and it certainly looked like he understood what Sean Lewis was asking for today, and he can make the throws, and he has the wide receivers to go and make those plays, you're going to have a lot of fun on offense. And I think that's exactly what we're in store for this Colorado Buffaloes offense. It is going to be a ton of fun from the personnel standpoint, the quarterback standpoint, the offensive play caller standpoint. We're in for a true treat. And now we turn our attention to Travis Hunter, who put on an absolute show today. Genuinely, if you can remember a performance like that, type it in the comments. And I'm not saying that we haven't seen stellar performances before. I have the poster of Devontae Smith going absolutely crazy in the one half of the national championship, where he was on his way to break all sorts of records had he not gotten hurt. But what Travis did today for that team was incredible. I want to bring you back to a series in the game where TCU broke a big run, 70-plus yards. The running back is going, and it's Travis Hunter and Shadeur Sanders that tracked him down and made the stop. A few plays later, after a great TCU play, it's Travis Hunter jumping the route, getting the interception, and then going on the offensive side and making plays. The young man had over 110 snaps today and was still running each route as if it was his first. And do you know what's more impressive about this? I was just talking to my wife about this, actually, as we were sitting out there and watching this. This wasn't a situation where Travis Hunter had over 110 snaps and wasn't being tested on the defensive side. No, Morris was testing him. So it's not like he got to take a bunch of plays off defensively. No, they looked his way. He had to go make plays, and he made those plays. On offense, on defense, anywhere where there needed a play to be made, Travis Hunter was there. So I don't think there's anything more to say about this Colorado offense. If you're grading it, I mean, I had an absolute blast at every level. The scheme they're running, Sean Lewis was in his bag. We saw a first down generated from Jimmy Horn Jr. coming in an orbit motion, getting right beside the quarterback, swinging back out, and Shadeur Sanders just coolly, calmly floating out to that right side, giving it to him. Easy first down. I mean, stuff that really makes it to where you keep running these things and you lull a defense to sleep, which is part of the reason why the first thing we talked about when we started talking about Shadeur Sanders, the first thing I drew your attention to was the football IQ he displayed, the level of understanding of what he needed to do to keep that Colorado offense moving. I'm not saying anybody won a national championship today. Understand this. This is week 1. What I am saying is there's no way you can honestly look me in the face and say you didn't have a blast watching that game. There's no way you as a college football fan can say you didn't watch that game with a smile from ear to ear, sad that it was ending, quite frankly. I'm sure Colorado was happy that it ended because they got to walk out of there with a well-earned victory. But me, the fan, was upset that game was over because it was awesome. It was awesome. That game, Colorado's offense is going to be a treat for all of us. Personnel, scheme, quarterback, whatever you want to see, they have it. And the true freshman, Dylan Edwards, he is going to be awesome. We talk about the Notre Dame class that could have been. Notre Dame at one point, ladies and gentlemen, had Peyton Bowen, Dylan Edwards, and Keon Keeley. I mean, we'll see what Keon Keeley looks like. That's a very talented room he steps into at the University of Alabama. Peyton Bowen goes into a situation where he's got some experienced guys in front of him, but he is an otherworldly talented guy. If Notre Dame lands those 3 guys, I mean, you're talking about a Notre Dame offense with Dylan Edwards. They already have a running back room that I really like, but can you imagine Dylan Edwards and Estime together? That thunder and lightning? Oh my goodness, that would be so much fun. Listen, Colorado's offense gets a passing grade, no doubt about it. Let's talk about Colorado's defense against TCU's offense, because this is the one area where I'm really interested in seeing the Buffaloes. The Buffaloes have players on that defense, right? I can point you to several different guys, and I'm like, hey, that guy right there is a real good football player. I like Demoy Kennedy from Alabama going there. Very athletic. He's sitting behind some guys right now, but if he gets the opportunity, I think he is going to show out. The one thing we just don't know about Colorado right now is the depth at defense. And granted, they played a TCU team that we know the offensive play caller for TCU wanted to get the ball out, wanted to score. We know TCU has some guys on that offense, even though they replaced some guys. We know Morris is a veteran quarterback. But Colorado up front, that's where I'm interested in seeing them throughout the course of this season. What does the depth up front look like for the Buffaloes? They've got some names up front that I really like. Jordan Dominic is a guy I'm really interested to see how he continues to progress for the Buffaloes as the season goes on. They have some interesting players, but do they have the depth? That's something we're going to have to watch. If you ask me, Ty, what's the one question you have about Colorado? And certainly I have questions about every team after week 1, but that's not a bad thing, right? I think that's a natural thing in college football. The one thing I still think we need to see from Colorado is that defense continue to progress. And that's not going to be something that you wave a magic wand and it's fixed in year 1. But this is what we understand. This is why during the offseason, we would always have this conversation and say, understand that Coach Prime is going to have this team looking really, really good in the Colorado Buffaloes, but that it's still a team that was 1-11. He has got a total rebuild in front of him. And it's, once again, I started this with it, but we now have 153 people in here. Thank you all very much for being in here. Hope you're enjoying your Saturdays with your friends, with your families, enjoying college football. Hop in the chat. Let's talk football. This is what this is all about. It's not just the fact that he had a total rebuild. He had to bulldoze the entire house, foundation it all, and had to strip it back to create his own foundation. Which is why this is impressive for Colorado. It is impressive. They were a 20-point underdog and played football and looked like a team that belongs playing football with the TCU. And this is just going to up the intrigue for the Buffalo season as it goes. But if we really stay focused on that defense, that's the area where I think next week is going to make that Nebraska-Colorado game must watch. I don't know if Nebraska can keep up with that offense. I don't see how But the one area where I'm super interested is, will Nebraska just put their heads down and say, you know what, let's try and play bully ball against this Colorado front? Because the Nebraska defense showed they're not a bad unit, or at least they showed week one that, hey, maybe we're a unit that can grow. I'm super excited to see that Nebraska defense versus this Colorado offense, especially with the old rivalry that was both programs making offseason hires that both fan bases rightfully should feel very excited about. Colorado with Coach Prime, Matt Rule with Nebraska. Both fan bases need to be very excited about that. But that's going to be a must-see matchup next weekend, especially if you're interested in how is Nebraska going to be this year, and if you're interested in how's Colorado going to be this year. Because the way that I believe each team will go about attacking the other is going to give us some answers that will be very helpful as the season moves on. Look, this game right here was awesome. I could go on talking about this game for another hour, but let's really dive into the stats because we haven't even looked at the box score. All we've done is talk what we saw. Shadeur Sanders, 38 of 47, 510 yards, averaging 10.9 per. Absolutely insane, 4 touchdowns. And once again, I would like to bring everybody's attention to this because I truly don't think it can be understated. He put up those gaudy numbers, that absolutely insane day. And I think the most impressive thing outside the accuracy, and he was dropping some of those go routes in a breadbasket. I mean, an absolute, if you were a wide receiver running with the basket in front of you like this, that football would have just sailed right into that basket some of those times. Absolute dimes. But it was the decision-making, the understanding, and the command of the offense was really fun to see. Let's call a spade a spade. Shadeur was awesome for 4 straight quarters. Awesome. I mean, once again, ladies and gentlemen, you can't be a college football fan and look me honestly in the face and say you didn't have a blast watching that game. I'm going to call you a liar because you had to have. It was awesome. Let's look back at some of these numbers. All right, let's look back at some of these numbers. Shadeur, we understand, incredible game. You had Wilkerson, 13 rushes, 45 yards. You had Dylan Edwards, 6 rushes, 24 yards. Hankerson, 9 rushes, 21 yards. Shadeur Sanders accounted for 5 rushes, negative 32 yards, but sack yards are accounted into that. And that's something that Colorado will continue to figure out. The offensive line is going to be a work in progress, but we need to understand that right there makes complete sense to me. If you were telling me, Ty, the one area that I thought Colorado needs to improve on is offensive line, at least offensively, that's going to make complete sense for me. What do we always talk about with the offensive line? It takes time to gel. These guys haven't been together for a year, and already they went out there and at least gave the offense the ability to do all that, which I think deserves some respect, deserves some attention. This was a Sean Lewis offense that was going fast. They knew what they needed to do. You had some inopportune penalties, but that's something that you can get cleaned up. It's week 1. If there was ever a time for an inopportune penalty, it's week 1. I mean, I just don't think you can say enough about this Colorado offense, top to bottom, truly top to bottom. You had a group on the offensive line, hasn't played together ever before, patchwork, and they did that. And as people are pointing out, you had 4 players with over 100 yards receiving. I am interested in how they continue getting that running game going. They had a guy not get too active today. 2 guys that I'm really interested in seeing as the season continues to progress. Alton McCaskill, a transfer they got in from Houston, and then Cavassier Smoke. I think this running back room is going to also emerge as the season goes on, especially as that offensive line continues to gel together. And I think they have names in this running back room that you need to be aware of. Names that maybe you didn't see today. I think Dylan Edwards is going to continue growing, developing. Wilkerson had himself some carries today that looked very good. Point being, I think the talent in that running back room is there. And then we get to the wide receivers. Dylan Edwards, 5 receptions, 135 yards. Have yourself a day, young man. What a debut in college football, averaging 27 yards per touch, 3 touchdowns long of 75 yards, and he looks like a difference maker, truly. Travis Hunter, 11 receptions, 119 yards, coming up with huge catches, 10.8 average, long of 43. Xavier Worthy, 6 catches, 118 yards, 19.7. Jimmy Horn Jr., 11 for 117. Weaver, Jimmy Horn Jr. played together at their previous stop, coming to Colorado together. I thought was awesome because they had great chemistry previously, and now they have great chemistry together at Colorado. And the interesting thing about it, is their styles are different enough to where you can maximize what they both do. And they're both versatile enough to really keep a defense guessing. So I think this really goes to show, first and foremost, great job coaching from the Colorado coaching staff. I don't think you could have asked for much more out of a week one from that team. I'm really excited to see how the defense continues to develop. There's a lot of patchwork on this team, top to bottom, which I think really goes to prove what a good job coaching it was. And I just can't wait for this weekend matchup next weekend with Nebraska. I just cannot wait to see what that game looks like, because I think in a lot of the ways Nebraska is going to try and attack Colorado, it will be in the middle with a power rush attack. And I just don't know if Nebraska is going to be able to keep up with Colorado if they start really going and that offense starts really clicking. So the Buffaloes, what a day. And Travis Hunter, ladies and gentlemen, I think, and it's week one, but Travis Hunter posted a picture on Instagram saying Heisman loading. Young man, if you keep playing like that, you will be in New York. I can guarantee you that. You play like that all season, I will drive you to New York myself, and we will riot if you were not there. He was awesome. Then getting the interception, the big interception when it mattered. I mean, what a play, the way he read that. And that's one where I'm really interested in watching that back, because I don't know like how bad of a read that was by Morris. Hunter came off of his receiver and jumped down to that. I mean, that was an insane read by a young player. Look, we're just super lucky that we get more Travis Hunter in college football. I think that's the best way to tie up this. Just as a quick bow on all of this, if you're a Colorado fan, you need to feel over the moon right now, and justifiably so. You have had many people doubt you, and many people doubt the moves that your head coach made this year. And coming out the gate, you can't do anything but applaud. Because even if you were someone who didn't believe they would be a better team, you cannot look at me as a college football fan and say you didn't have a blast watching that team out there. You can't. And if you say you didn't, I'm going to question how much of a college football fan you are. Awesome stuff by the Colorado Buffaloes. Awesome stuff by Coach Prime. Awesome stuff by Travis Hunter, Shadeur Sanders. There's so much you need to be excited about on that Colorado offense. Really interested in seeing how that Colorado defense continues to progress. Xavier Weaver, Neo. If I said Worthy, that's completely my fault. I'm watching. I'm not going to get copyrighted for this, but I'm watching the Texas game. So I very well, Neo, could have said Xavier Worthy. And if I did, that is 100% my fault. No, Xavier Worthy, great player for Texas, looks to have a big season. Xavier Weaver transferred with Jimmy Horn Jr. So my mistakes there if I misspoke on that. Let's talk about the Oklahoma Sooners, though. Because I get it. You played Arkansas State. I understand. Arkansas State is a team that you should crush, right? They were a team last year that didn't have a great offense. They didn't have a great defense. But ladies and gentlemen, can we just call a spade a spade? There are games you should win, and you walk out of that game, you win 42-0, and you're like, yeah, we should. The Oklahoma Sooners didn't just win this game. They absolutely annihilated Arkansas State 73-0. And if I'm being completely honest, they could have called this game at halftime and we could have just packed it up. Great thing they didn't. Great development and stuff for the players at the University of Oklahoma. I actually really loved that Brent Venables rolled those guys out there after the second half, let them get those reps. And I really liked how Brent Venables was coaching in the fourth quarter. There was a drive where there was a little bit of a miscommunication on the Oklahoma defense. Nothing terrible happened, obviously. No points were generated. Just a little bit of a miscommunication. Arkansas State was able to generate a positive play. And Brent Venables, up 60-plus points, is coaching as if it's a tie ball game and you're 15 seconds into the game. And that's where I was like, good. That's exactly what you want to see. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, I haven't questioned Brent Venables. He came into questionable circumstances, not within his control, and he's trying to make the most of it. But those things right there are the things that you love to see. Your head coach out there coaching it up, even when some could argue it doesn't matter. But that's the crazy part of all this. It does matter. Those moments matter. Coaching up your players in those moments matter. So Oklahoma goes out there, absolutely dominates Arkansas State. Where do we want to begin in this? Well, I think the best place to begin is Oklahoma's offense. Dillon Gabriel had himself a day, 19 of 22, 308 yards, 14 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And look, everything you could have wanted him to do, he did. He was automatic. The thing that I think you need to come away with the most impressed with Gabriel is the instant connection he had with Anthony, right? Anthony coming in through the transfer portal, and that instant connection, I think if you're an Oklahoma Sooner fan, is something you need to take away from this game and be very happy with, because we need to talk about a conversation we had all summer. I had one question for the Oklahoma offense. And when I say I had a question, allow me to explain. I wanted to see what this Oklahoma wide receiver room was going to do. If you had to tell me, Ty, what's one question you have for Oklahoma's offense, it was the wide receiver room. And understand that my question wasn't, do they have the talent there? They had talented guys. My question was simply, who are going to be the names that step up and what does it look like? So seeing Andrell Anthony come in, a guy that didn't have a whole lot of reps with Dillon Gabriel in the context of the whole of the Oklahoma Sooners team, to see him have that rapport with Gabriel, I think is something you need to be very excited about. That is an area I think you can take. The running game for Oklahoma looked as expected. That's something we talked about. If we looked at the Oklahoma rushing, first off, so many guys got involved. The total Oklahoma rushing yards, 49 attempts, 220 yards, 4.5 average, 6 touchdowns on the ground. Tawee Walker got involved in a big way. And one of the things we've talked about with Tawee Walker is his ability to be multiple. Now, we didn't see this today. We didn't see Tawee Walker get active in the passing game, but understand if there's another wrinkle that you can see out of your running backs, I think that is where you could look and say, okay, that's an area where we could still have a bit more growth, a bit more versatility. And I think we saw it just because you didn't need to get Tawee Walker out the backfield catching passes. You didn't need any of the guys to do that. You just told them, hey, hit your gaps, run hard, we'll do it. And it was incredibly successful. Let's be very transparent here. So I think Tawee Walker is a guy you're going to see a lot more of and you're really going to like. Javonte Barnes led this effort, 13 rushes, 49 yards. And look, when you look at this, I think the thing you have to like from an Oklahoma Sooner perspective is how many guys got involved. I mean, you're talking Javonte Barnes, Tawee Walker, Jackson Arnold used his legs. You had Marcus Major out there. You had Dalen Smothers out there. Dillon Gabriel was active in some. You had Khalib Hicks. So you got so many different guys the ball, and that's an area we talked about. If there was one question I had for the Oklahoma offense as a whole, not unit by unit, but there was one genuine question I had for the Oklahoma offense as a whole. It was an offense that was not the issue last year, but it contributed to an issue for Oklahoma. And what I mean when I say that is sometimes when your offense is feast or famine based, it puts unneeded stress on a defense that's growing. Now, that's nobody's real fault. It is what it is. But that's why going into this game, the one thing I said I wanted to see from Oklahoma and this year from Jeff Lebby, what does your off-speed pitch look like? I know you have a fastball. You've made that abundantly clear. You have a fastball. But what does your off-speed pitch look like? And in this game, we saw an off-speed pitch. Now, once again, it's Arkansas State. They had a bottom 100 defense last year, so we can't understand what level of off-speed pitch Oklahoma has, but we can understand this. SBC Bates, thank you for the $5. He says, my biggest takeaways are that DG's timing is much better, 100% true, and OU is way faster everywhere. I think you're right there, man. I think when you look at the wide receivers, Gavin Freeman is a really fun player to watch. Let's be honest. He's a good player. Drake Stoops is a crafty football player. I think Oklahoma fans, you know how much I think of Jaleel Farouk. Right? He is a really fun player to watch. I love how Lebby utilized him in that offense last year, and I'm excited to see as the season progresses how they continue to utilize him throughout this season. But I think that you had some guys on the outside you got to be very excited about. I'm really interested in seeing next week. But the area where I was leading into, even though we don't know to what depth Oklahoma's offense has that off-speed pitch down, the one thing I love about the Oklahoma offense this year, or at least what I think they're going to do, is they're going to rely on multiple running backs And that's going to help them be able to either speed it up or slow it down. And if Oklahoma can develop that off-speed pitch on offense, an offense that was already good last year, very good last year, will be even better. They'll be more balanced and much tougher to defend. That's the only thing we needed to see from the Sooners, is develop that off-speed pitch, that consistency on offense. And in fairness, today, you can't do anything but applaud what you saw from Oklahoma. There's still some things we need to see. And next weekend's going to be great against SMU. SMU, Louisiana Tech were having an absolute awesome game. Their wide receivers were making huge plays. But the Oklahoma Sooners, there's nothing you can really point to from this game and say, what do we need? You won 73-0. And yes, you should have just absolutely trampled Arkansas State. But we would have been fine if you would have gotten out of there 45-0. You did 73-0. And it was the way they made it look. Nobody won a national championship today. Nobody has been crowned a conference champion today. But what I will say is, if you're an Oklahoma fan, you should feel good after that game. There's never a game where a team has won 73-0 where you shouldn't feel very good. It's very simple. Ty, defensive line and linebacker play was just not good. Well, we'll find out more about that. Like, look, don't get me wrong. I'm still not sitting here telling you that Oklahoma's defense is completely solved. I don't think that'll be the case. That's part of the reason I do agree with you, Thomas. This 2024 recruiting class is so important for Oklahoma because they need to get those defensive line guys. The linebacker play, we'll give that some time, right? Because Kanak is new. He's very talented, but he needs to feel things out. It's game one. And we know what Venables asks of the linebackers. So it's nothing. You didn't see anything. What I mean is, when you were like, oh, well, that's still a big issue. You might have said, okay, well, I still need to see a little bit more out of this group. And I think that's to be expected. But all in all, you can't do anything but be very pleased with how Oklahoma played today. You won 73-0. You won 73-0. And Harrington out there at Cheetah is going to be really fun to watch. I'm excited to see how your secondary continues to grow. I think you still have, I don't want to say competition there, but healthy competition there. I think that's a good way to put it, because healthy competition indicates that you have multiple guys that might be able to play the position at a high level, and I think that could be the case. A couple of times. It looked like that to me. I'm going to go back and rewatch the Oklahoma game and give it my entire attention, because I had the multicast on and I was watching it. But, I mean, let's be honest, guys. Oklahoma was kicking their teeth in from the onset, and so I was mainly watching that Colorado game. But I was had them both up on the TV at the same time. You were generating pressure. You might not have gotten the sacks, but I mean, look, here's the question. Did they score? No. Once again, Arkansas State, everybody understands this. This was a team you were supposed to beat. You beat them incredibly handily. Arky State held the D-line back. That ain't bueno, but again, I only watched 15. Yeah. Look, the defensive line is still going to be a work in a project. It's going to be a work in progress, but the defensive line, like we started this live off with, guys, much like the offensive line, it's a bit easier to gel as a defensive line, in my opinion, but it's still something where, hey, if you got a bunch of guys from the transfer portal, you still need to figure some of that out. Next week against SMU, I'm very, you got some tackles for loss, no doubt. I'm very excited to see how this Oklahoma team handles SMU. Once again, a team you should beat. Nobody's questioning that. I'm not saying that you shouldn't beat SMU. I'm just saying that's going to be a much better setup, a much better matchup to try and start answering some questions. So let's look at the box score here. Let's see how Oklahoma looks when we look at the numbers. And one of the other things that really stood out to me, we talked about Andrell Anthony, and I think if you're saying what can we take away offensively from this, is that DG had a really good instant connection with Anthony. And I think you need to be very excited about that. Marvin Mims was a large part of this offense. He's no longer there. What are you going to do to mitigate that loss? You have Andrell Anthony, who played very well. A name that I don't think gets enough love, and I want to call some attention to their name because they're going to be an interesting player for Oklahoma, is LV Bunkley Shelton, because he's a very smart wide receiver. I like the way he finds openings in the defense, and I think he could be a very crafty wide receiver for Lebby in this offense. So the Oklahoma wide receivers, I think you had several guys play and you were like, okay, that's something we can really build on. But what about Jaden Gibson, ladies and gentlemen, a young man that had some drops during the spring game, kind of was sitting there. We know how talented he is. And he goes out there today and doesn't just make some big plays. He makes some spectacular catches, like SportsCenter top 10 catches. Awesome for the young man. I know that had to be great for him, for his family, for his team, for the wide receiver coach, for the whole team. I mean, top to bottom. That's what you want to see. That's exactly what you want to see. For Oklahoma, once again, guys, putting a bow on this one. When you look at Oklahoma, you wanted them to come out of this game and you say, I'm very excited for next week because I didn't learn much in this game. And if I did learn anything, it was little nuggets into how I think we're building in a better direction. And that's exactly how you should feel if you're Oklahoma. I'm not saying all your questions are answered, but the good news is they weren't answered against Arkansas State. Remember, we talked about this last week. We talked about this with San Jose State when they played USC. My apologies. If you have a lot of questions answered when you're playing in Arkansas State, that may not be a good thing. I think the best case scenario is exiting the game as you did, where you're like, hey, our offense scored a ton of points. We held them scoreless. It looks like we're building in the other direction. The guys were out there flying around. Looks like we got the defense taking a step forward. Let's see if they can continue building. That is exactly what you wanted from the day, and that's exactly what you got. More questions will be answered as the season unfolds, but I firmly stand with you don't want too many questions answered. In a week one, if you're playing in Arkansas State, a San Jose State, you don't want too many questions answered, right? Truth, I saw all of your comments. I meant to comment back the other day whenever you were talking about the USC defense. I meant to comment back. I had a whole comment typed out, started running errands, and then realized I didn't send it. And by that time, multiple hours had passed, and I was like, okay, it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, you were hitting the nail on the head there. USC, we still have questions. It's not like San Jose State answered questions top to bottom for us. But if you were a USC fan, you probably should have wanted to exit that game with more optimism on the defensive side, right? Where you're like, oh, well, I still don't know where our defense is. We held San Jose State to 14 points, 10 points. They got 7 points early, a touchdown in the fourth quarter. So we'll see. That's what you wanted. And instead, you had San Jose State find more success. Not the end of the world. USC could still go on to have a great season. But you didn't have the same type of questions that Oklahoma does moving into week 2. Now, neither one of those questions ultimately have to be answered week 1. But it's just awesome to see that Oklahoma team flying around. I'm really excited to see how they play against SMU. Some things you still want to see cleaned up, but what team doesn't have things you don't want to see cleaned up in week 1? And who complains when you win 73-0? You dominated every facet of the game. Offense, defense, special teams. That's all you can ask for. All you can ask for is to win all the phases of the game you're active in. That's what Oklahoma did. Hats off to the coaching staff. Hats off to Brent Venables. Hats off to the offensive and defensive stats. Let's look around at college football right now. I'm watching the Texas game. I'm going to start paying a bit more attention to that because I'm getting some comments saying Texas and Rice are a game right now. Let's check this out. Now, one thing we do need to understand, once again, week 1, right? It's one of those things. If we look right now, another game I'm surprised nobody has talked about. What about this Boise State-Washington game? Boise State up 9-7 against the Washington Huskies. Boise State unranked, Washington ranked 10th. That's another game to keep y'all's eye on. That's one I will be watching as soon as we get out of here, because y'all already know how highly I think of Michael Penix Jr. Had a blast watching him up last year. Truth speaking on the Texas game, a Texas fan, ladies and gentlemen, who I think is hyper realistic on where his team is. If he disagrees with you and you disagree with him, chances are you probably both are standing on a sound, logical argument, and there's plenty of those to go around, right? He says, JT Daniels looks good, not going to lie, but we should be up 3 touchdowns right now. That's fair. JT Daniels is a very experienced quarterback in college football, but he's never been able to be the guy that he was building towards his freshman year. Freshman year, JT Daniels was really fun to watch. If you ever get the opportunity, go back, watch freshman year JT Daniels. So much fun to watch. Super quick release. Actually, at the time, I remember thinking to myself, JT Daniels coming out, and I'm like, man, this kid has one of the quickest releases I've seen in a while. It was automatic. He picked where he wanted to go. Boom. Had that injury at USC his sophomore season, and unfortunately has never recaptured that fire. I would love nothing more than for him to get back to the player that he can be with Rice. I think it'd be just a wild story in college football, considering how many teams he's gone to. I mean, can you imagine if it didn't work with Georgia, if it didn't work with West Virginia, and it didn't work, and he goes to Rice and it comes together? What a feel-good story. You couldn't do anything but love it. Come on now. That'd be great. Sam says offensive line looks bad right now. Yeah, I haven't been watching too much. I'm recording the Texas game. I'm recording all the games right now. That way, when we get out of here, we can go back, rewatch it tonight. I can rewatch it. By the way, guys, we're not going to get out of here just yet, but this evening, 9 o'clock Central Standard Time, you can find me at the Fan Addicts YouTube channel. Bunch of us coming together, reacting to week 1 as a whole. Would love to see you over there. Once again, that's on the Fan Addicts YouTube channel. I will go ahead and post that on my community page. So if y'all are interested in that, be on the lookout for that link. Tia says, never been on your channel. Your knowledgeable and non-biased content is phenomenal. Thank you so much, Tia, and thank you for spending some time here. I know your time is valuable. And so choosing to spend that here with us on this Saturday, that means a ton to me. Thank you very, very, very much for being here. Hope you're enjoying your Saturday. I'm on a commercial. Truth, who got an interception? Did y'all get an interception, or did you get intercepted? I hope that y'all generated an interception for Texas fans' sake. It's got to be y'all, yeah. I just saw the play, Truth. I just saw the play. You're 100% right. D-line created that 100%. 100%. And you know what? This gets us into an interesting conversation. Truth, I think you're going to appreciate this conversation a lot about stats, right? I can't wait to have this conversation. This is how you know I'm a college football degenerate. This is where we need to have this conversation about stats. Sacks are a great stat. They are. Like, I'm someone who, you hear a lot of people say sacks are an overrated stat, and I think to a certain degree they are, but I also think that argument is a little bit overblown. Like, getting a sack is a big deal. It's not a small thing, and I think you can hear this sort of notion that, oh, that's the most overblown stat. I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't think it's the most important, though. Plays like that, right, are reflecting what I'm trying to get at here, where the defensive line creates the pressure that makes JT Daniels uncomfortable, makes him make a bad throw, a bad decision, and it generates a turnover. It generates a negative play. It generates a non-play, right? Even if the pass wasn't intercepted, it's batted down, and they have to go back to the line of scrimmage. You've nullified one of their potential 4 downs, more than likely 3 downs, which is a win. But that's what I mean. That's where I want to have the conversation about stats. Sacks are important. Quarterback hurries, I think, is just as important, right? I think it's just as important as that sack stat. And I think that proves it. The defensive lineman did a great job getting in the quarterback's face, making him uncomfortable, and the defense capitalized on the play. I hope your subscribers, you're the real deal. Keep up the good work. I'm a Buffs fan. Your content is super. Thank you so much. Hey, your Buffs look fantastic today. I've believed in them all season. I thought they'd be a lot better than people expected, Tia. I didn't think they would be that buttoned up week 1. And I knew Prime was a great coach. I mean, first off, Tia, to give you some backstory, I live in the North Texas area, a hop, skip, and a jump from where Coach Prime used to live out here. So I grew up in high school. One of his sons played at a high school not far away. Like, I'm very, very, very familiar with Coach Prime. Very familiar. And the community out here loved him out here. I've always thought very highly of him. So I knew he could coach. And then secondly, the thing that Jay, Unfair Sports, Tia, another great content creator, he's an Oklahoma fan, talks great college football. He's said the same thing as I have. We've talked about it together multiple times. The thing that Prime did that I don't think a lot of people have really acknowledged is get the staff he did together. You're talking Kent State's former head coach, Sean Lewis, who is in his bag all day today. You're talking a guy in Charles Kelly who last season, the class of 2023, 24/7 Sports tabbed as the #1 recruiter in the nation, someone who has worked under Nick Saban, someone who has had experience as a defensive coordinator before and is a phenomenal recruiter. On top of that, look at the assistant guys you got. And to put the cherry on top, Coach Prime was able to bring over Brett Bartolone, who was the offensive coordinator at JSU, an offense that was putting up huge numbers now. He brought over Brett Bartolone, and instead of that being your offensive coordinator, that's your wide receiver coach. You have Sean Lewis, a former head coach, as your OC, and Brett Bartolone as your wide receiver coach. That's nutty. That coaching staff is actually really nice. Really, really nice. Derek Jones says, Shadeur like that? Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And you know what? The reason why I pointed your attention to the coaching staff is what Hidden Master right here said. That's exactly where I was going with. That coaching staff did a great job getting them ready for that game. And once again, we have more people in here who may not have been in here when I said this earlier. So if you were in here earlier, I'm sorry, I'm about to repeat myself. But for the people who weren't in here, people are going to say TCU had to replace a lot from that team, that was not the same TCU team as last year. And that's true. Look, over here, we embrace facts. We embrace objectivity. We embrace it all so that way we can have the most complete conversation about the game of football. That's true. That was not the same TCU team that was just in the national championship. They lost their quarterback. They lost one of their best wide receivers, their best wide receiver. I apologize. Great players they lost. But we cannot say that without then understanding in the same sentence, Colorado was a 1-11 team last year. That's not the same Colorado Buffaloes as it was a year ago. So if TCU gets that grace, certainly the Colorado Buffaloes are afforded that grace. And furthermore, TCU didn't have the turnover on the coaching staff that Colorado did. That's an entirely new coaching staff. An entirely new coaching staff. And they had those boys hemmed up. Look, I've talked about this all the time. I knew, and I've said it. They have weapons out there. They have weapons. That wide receiving core is nasty. Weaver, Horn, Travis Hunter, Dylan Edwards could genuinely slide out to the slot, and he'd be a nightmare. He's played one college football game. He could be a slot wide receiver right now. Awesome to watch him play. You knew that the offense had talent. But it was how disciplined they were. And that's exactly why when we first started talking Shadeur Sanders, I didn't instantly bring your attention to what he can do in terms of athleticism, which is an entire conversation we can and need to have. Make no mistake about it. That's a conversation we will have. How athletic he is, what he can do, what his arm will allow him to do. That's a very real conversation, but that's not the conversation that you need to have first. The first conversation you need to have is giving him praise and taking what the defense gave and understanding what incredible high-level quarterback play looks like. Don't force it. If I have the check down and it's standing wide open, why am I not going to, within 3 seconds, give it to the check down so that I can get 5 yards, put us in 1st and 5 off the rip, getting into 2nd and 5, right? Take another 5 yards on 2nd down. Now in 2 plays, we've converted the 1st down. Why am I going to not do that as opposed to try and force things? Shadeur forced nothing today. Nothing. He took what the defense gave. And you know what that shows you? Someone who has supreme understanding of the game of football, a very high football IQ and someone who has a supreme understanding of the offense that they're operating within. It's his first game with Sean Lewis. That's the most impressive thing about Shadeur Sanders. And his arm talent is impressive. His ability is impressive. His understanding of how to find success was awesome. Manipulating the defense, using his legs as an extension of his arms. What I mean when I say that, we know he's an athletic guy, but there were times where he could have taken off, but he understood there's a bigger possibility here. If I can keep the play alive, keep my eyes downfield, someone will come open and I can make a play out of nothing. And he did it multiple times. Shadeur's football IQ was all over the place today. You need to give him a bunch of flowers, but you also really, really, really need to give that coaching staff a bunch of flowers for Colorado. The team was buttoned up. Top to bottom, buttoned up, ready to play football. And they didn't draw a Bishop Sycamore for game one. They didn't draw a tune-up game for game one. They drew TCU. By the way, I talked about this a while ago. I kind of coined the phrase that Coach Prime moves the needle for me. It's not just that Coach Prime moves the needle for me. TCU just had the largest crowd they've ever had. He moves the needle, period. The Big 12 has done a great job in getting the teams they have, especially with Texas and Oklahoma out the door. You're not going to replicate the revenue, the attention that Texas and Oklahoma generate. Let's be very honest. It's two of the biggest brands in college football. But what they did was get brands that are compelling. And Coach Prime is as compelling as any story as there is in college football right now. It's a fact. It is an absolute fact. I mean, the only thing we need to see more from Colorado is the depth up front on the defense. The secondary I like a lot, and we didn't even see Cremani McLean today. I don't know what the situation was there, so I'm not going to even put any sort of possibility out into existence because I don't know where Cremani McLean was. That's not on me to speak on. But when he does get out there, you're going to have Money McLean and Travis Hunter out there at cornerback, Shiloh back there at safety. I mean, the secondary has got the pieces. Truth said, I'm tuning in and out right about the hidden stats. Yeah, man, you and I talk about this all the time, man. Stuff like that matters. Stuff like that really matters. Preoccupied. I get it, man. I get it. I'm missing this Texas game right now. Just up here talking college football, but you know I can't help myself. My wife's just happy that I'm not out there bothering her anymore. So it's kind of a win-win. I get to be in here and bothering y'all. I apologize, but welcome. Welcome. If you're in here, guys, if you're not subscribed, I'd love to have you a part of this community. This is a total college football channel. We're still growing. This is what I love to do. We talk college football. We take as middle of the road approach we can, not so that we sit on the fence, but so that we can try and wade through all of it and try and find what it is that's making things tick. Good, bad, and different. That's what we do. We take an approach to college football almost as if this is a debate and wade through everything like that. That's the way I like to do it. Would love to have you a part of this family. Awesome channel, awesome community, as you can see by the people in the chat. This is every stream. The chat, the members of this community are unbelievable, and they make this channel what it is. They're in here talking college football, and they are fans of college football. As big as fans as we have of Texas, of Oklahoma, of Alabama, of Colorado, of you name it, these are college football fans in here, and you'd love to have you a part of it. Hidden Master, I'm assuming you are a Colorado fan because you've been putting me on some game for Colorado. You've been really in your bag speaking on some Colorado stuff. He says Cremani was freshman unready. Yeah, he's a freshman. No doubt about that. No doubt about that. Look, true freshman. I'm never surprised, I should say, when a true freshman doesn't play game one. He's a true freshman. He was just playing high school football. Makes sense. But that kid has got a lot of ability. I saw that on the depth chart, George. I didn't know if there was a reason for that, which is why I said whenever I started talking about Cremani that I didn't want to speak too much on it because I didn't know if there was a reason, maybe who knows, right? But I am excited to see him continue to develop because those two are going to be really fun. Bates says Colorado will be the best 4 or 5 loss team in the country this year for sure. People who paid attention know that TCU isn't going to be a world beater this year. No, they might not be a world beater, Bates. And I think I can agree with you. I don't think TCU is going to go and repeat as the Big 12, like as a college football playoff appearance for the Big 12. I agree with you there. But I think two things can simultaneously be true. I think it can be true that TCU is not the team they were last year and that they have taken a step back. But I think at that same time, it can be true that what we saw out of Colorado was way above what anybody thought they would be, unless you were a super diehard Buffs fan. And then, hey, hats off to you. You were right. I was high on Colorado. Bates, you know this. We've had this. We've talked about this on lives before. I didn't think they would be that ready for primetime college football. I thought they would be ready. I thought you would watch this game and say, man, that's a fun team. We got to tune in for Colorado games this year. They're going to be a fun team to watch grow. That's the truth, but it was just how ready they were, where I was really, really, really impressed. Really impressed with the Colorado coaching staff and the job they did. I think they deserve a lot of praise. And that Nebraska-Colorado game is going to be must-see next week. Let's see. Did he catch that? Nope. That's unfortunate. We got Texas and Rice right now. Texas has a 10-point lead. Going to be interesting to see coming out of half what this looks like. Man, that's one where Quinn's usually pretty automatic on those outside the numbers throws. That's where he usually is right there. This Colorado game reminded me of a Lincoln Riley team, high-powered offense, but a defense that's going to give up points too. Yeah, Courts, look, the defense is going to be a work in progress, but I think that if we were sitting down and objectively looking at this Colorado team, that was the one area where I thought that the questions were most well placed. The offensive line, I understand a lot of people had questions about that, but you had some guys follow Sean Lewis from Kent State, which I thought was a compelling factor. I liked that. The defensive line, once again, they have guys I like. They have guys I like on the front and in the linebacking room, but it's do they have the depth? And that's going to be something we have to watch. But what I will say is that from where I think a lot of people thought Colorado would be starting game one from, it's much further ahead. And I think this is, first off, let's understand, this is going to help their recruiting, right? Because if you thought they had hype before, they just knocked off a ranked team that was just in the national championship. And now they get to go around and be like, hey, you should put faith in us. Like, we are building something here. We are these pieces away. So look, yeah, understand, guys, nobody has won a national championship today. That's not what week one is about. Week one is about, are you a football team that's going to generate excitement for college football, but most importantly for your fan base? The answer for Colorado fans is absolutely. And if you're a college football fan, I feel that you should be very excited because of the players they have. If you're an Oklahoma fan, yeah, you kicked the teeth in of Arkansas State, but you as an Oklahoma fan should be over the moon. You walked out of that game. The offense looked there. Your running backs looked good. Andrel Anthony came up, looked like a guy that's developing in that wide receiver room, that he's going to be a big force. We know what Jaleel Farouk is. You had some tight ends get involved. I thought that was nice to see. So it's this notion of going out there and doing what you should do. We still need to see more from the Colorado defense, but I think that can be said for a lot of teams that go out there and play a Division I Power 5 team week one. This was a 1-11 team last year that just played a TCU team that does have some running backs I like. They have a veteran quarterback and they handle business. That's why I say I'm impressed. It's not, we saw Colorado give up one touchdown where it was just like, that was a bust, right? That was a bust. But outside of that, if TCU gained ground, it's because they started playing bully ball, which goes into the depth equation. And that's not something that will be solved entirely in 1 year, but nobody expected that to be solved entirely in 1 year. Kermani was there, says a lot about the respect they have for the kid who was dressed. Yeah, that kid right there is going to be fun. Any word on Drake Stoops? Neil, I actually don't know. I will hit up someone right now and see what I can't find out about Stoops. I don't think it was going to be something that was terrible. I think from what I heard, it was a dislocated shoulder. But once again, don't take that as word. Don't take that as word. I have no idea. Will you dare to say this is for Colorado football, this is absolutely a new era, Hidden Master. No questions about it. There's no questions about it. There's absolutely no questions about that. No questions about that. Derek Jones, and you know what's funny? I keep meaning to get out this point because I said this to my wife as we were out there watching. When I was watching Shadeur Sanders play a little bit of dink and dunk, I was like, that's exactly what he needs to be doing. And she looked at me as I was crazy because she didn't say anything. I said this to her completely unprompted as I'm sitting there talking college football. And she entertains me because she's a good woman. And she said, well, what do you mean? I said, Shadeur Sanders has great wide receivers on the outside that he knows, okay, if I hold on to this ball for 1, maybe 2 more seconds, maybe Travis Hunter gets open. Maybe Jimmy Horn Jr. gets open. Maybe Weaver gets open. I know they have the ability. But why would I take that risk when I have a completion right there for 5 yards? Boop. And again, and again, and again. And you know what it does? It lulls a defense to sleep so that then he's just hitting them over top, dropping footballs in bread baskets, quite frankly. And now a defense has to be aware of everything. That was just so impressive to see. I know I've said that multiple times, guys, but it was just people question Sanders, Shadeur, and Coach Prime. And I would always be kind of confused at questioning them both, but certainly Shadeur, because he's been a good quarterback. He's been a really solid quarterback every level. Blood says Texas will not beat Bama playing like this. Ty, I think we're going to win that bet. Yeah, listen, I hear you. Playing like this. No, Blood. That's why they have week ones, brother. That's why they have week ones. As much as, I wish I could sit here and confidently put the stamp on it that I'm going to win this bet with truth. That's why they have week 1 games, man. We'll see how Texas responds in the second half. And hey, actually, truth, there's a silver lining in this. One of the biggest questions we've had about Steve Sarkisian and this current Texas staff is how do you respond in the second half? If we actually look at the point differential going through while Steve Sarkisian has been head coach of the Texas Longhorns, they're killing teams in the first half in point differential. They're winning in the third quarter of point differential, and they are losing in the fourth quarter of point differential. So this is a unique opportunity for Steve Sarkisian. Your team is up by 10 points against Rice. Come out of the second half and, to put it, bluntly, take the head off. Come out in the second half and take the head off and get back to business. So I don't think much can change from week 1 to week 2. No, Blood, you're not wrong. But I do think there is something to be said for hey, week 1 is a week where there is a bit more flexibility. Now, if here's where I completely agree with you, Blood, and I'm interested in hearing what you say after I say this, kind of hearing where you are. If this was week 3 and Bama Texas played week 4, I would be like, yeah, 100%. 100%. Like, you are who you are. And I do agree. You're not going to go from a bad football team to a great football team during the season. But if there was ever a week where you're going to falter, it's going to be week 1, or at least if you're going to falter, you hope it's earlier in the season. And so I'm not ready to just say yet that that Texas Bama game is not going to be an awesome game. I still think it's going to be a great game. Madison said special teams played like trash, defense like trash. I'm talking about Colorado. Listen, the defense gave up some yards, Madison, but they were good in the first half. It was the TCU offense being able to grind them down through the rushing game, which Madison, to your point, makes the game next weekend so compelling. That Nebraska-Colorado game, because you have to imagine that they're going to try and use Jeff Sims in a power run capacity to open up that Nebraska offense, spring open the passing game so that they can get some flexibility added in there. So it's going to be awesome to see. It's going to be awesome to see how Nebraska goes about attacking that defense. You know, Matt Rule is going to want that second game win, especially how they lost that first game. And he's certainly not guilty of the sins of the father, but you can't tell that to Nebraska fans, right? Like, it's not Matt Rule's fault that Nebraska has lost 3 home openers before he got there, but then that's not Nebraska fans' fault either. So they want success. Yeah, that is going to be a great game, though. That is going to be a really fun game, Nebraska-Colorado. Seeing how Nebraska goes about attacking that defensive front, because theoretically, I think you could really start playing some power and affect that Colorado defense by playing power. The problem is if you're not able to throw the ball, and as much as I think you can attack on Colorado, I don't know how much they're going to rely on throwing the ball on Colorado. Because I just think that the Colorado DBs are too good for what Nebraska is going to roll out there, right? I just think that they're going to be too good, too complete. The only problem with Nebraska's strategy that I believe they will employ, and once again, guys, we're talking football here. I could give you this whole soliloquy that actually makes sense, that's logical, and Nebraska could go out there and throw the ball 100 times for whatever inexplicable reason. That's football. But what I believe they will do is pound the rock up the middle. The only problem with that for Nebraska is I think Nebraska's defense played hard against Minnesota. I think they played really hard, and Minnesota had some good wide receivers. Daniel Jackson was out there putting on a route clinic with 2 of his routes. I mean, he had a simple slant route that, guys, I'm not joking, I kept going back and watching his release, how he set up the DB. Because twice he set up the DB masterfully and was able to capitalize. I'm ranting here, but point being, the Nebraska defense was flying around. They were playing hard, tackling defense. They were trying to get to the ball with violent intent. But if you can't score with Colorado, and if they start running away with this game, if Colorado gets up by 10 points against Nebraska and Nebraska has to rely on a power run attack to keep up and score, that's where I'm concerned for the Cornhuskers. I don't know how they're going to keep up with this Colorado offense, and this Colorado offense is real in every sense of the word. It's real, very real. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, when we're talking about the defense, I like players on the defense. I do. I really like the secondary. I like some of the linebackers you have, but it's the depth there, which is completely natural. Completely natural. Rice is playing as good as TCU. Buffs by DD next week, yeah. McCaskill will play next week. And this is another thing, right? We talk about the Colorado offense, that running game. I don't know, CSM, if you were in here earlier, but I talked about this earlier, so it's great that you bring it up. This is a Colorado rushing attack that was effective today, but they didn't largely have to do much because Shadeur was in his bag. I mean, he and Sean Lewis were in their bag today. But this Colorado rushing attack has a Dylan Edwards that's going to be a star. They have McCaskill coming from Houston. That McCaskill's freshman year, he was sensational. And then they still have Cavassier Smoke. They still have some names in this running back room. Hope Colorado wins the pack. I think that would be a tough ask, Sco and Go Media, because there are teams in the pack that are just further ahead in terms of they've had a coaching staff that's been there for years that they've been able to recruit. But that being said, I think Colorado is going to make the pack a lot more interesting than a lot of people thought. They're going to be so much fun. Predictions on the LSU-FSU game tomorrow night. Yeah, of course, Weinman. So that's going to be a must-see game, right? I'm going to predict Florida State to win this game, even though I think this is a game that could truly go either way. And I mean truly go either way. What I'm most upset about is I have to go yet another game where I have to watch LSU football and they not have Mason Smith. I'm going to pull my hair out if I have to go too many more LSU games without watching that young man play football. Mason Smith, former 5-star defensive lineman, very, very gifted, went down last year, didn't get to play, has to serve a 1-game suspension. They chose the Florida State game. I can't wait till he's back on the football field. I think he's going to be a big piece of this LSU defense, especially when you put him with a Harold Perkins. But let's look at this game because Florida State's a team that returns a lot, and they did a lot of work in the transfer portal. I like LSU, but LSU is in a situation where one of their running backs isn't going to be playing, and this was already a LSU rushing attack that's leading rusher last year was Jaden Daniels. And for those of you that have been around the channel for a while now, you'll remember when Jaden Daniels was a freshman, I was high on him, and I remain really high on Jaden Daniels. I love his game. I think he's an exciting football player. I really enjoy watching LSU games because of him. But he is a veteran quarterback. FSU has a veteran quarterback. When I look at this, I have to ask myself, okay, LSU is already in a situation where they were trying to figure out who is going to be the guy at running back, and now one of the guys they're looking forward to isn't going to be there. They don't have him. They don't have Mason Smith. And then I look over at Florida State, and I have to ask myself, what did you get in the transfer portal that really moves the needle for me? And there are multiple names that Florida State got in the transfer portal that I think you need to be aware of as a college football fan, but I'm going to highlight 2 that I think you need to be very excited about. First of all is Fentrell Cypress coming from Virginia to Florida State. He was rated as the best cornerback in the transfer portal before Travis Hunter entered into the transfer portal. No question Travis Hunter was the best available player in the transfer portal. I actually think 24/7 Sports put out a great list that had Travis Hunter as the number 1 available transfer portal player, and that Shadeur was number 6. I think you could probably bump Shadeur up after today to at the very least the top 5 because the young man was sensational. I mean, I'm going to be talking about that for until they play Nebraska at the very least. MacArthur Tolbert says, great win. Looking forward to next weekend against Nebraska. As you should, MacArthur, as you should. It is going to be such a fun game. Hidden Master says Utah is going to be a problem. Hidden, but when is a Kyle Whittingham coach team not one that you got to look out for, brother? I mean, that's a coach that never gets his roses, but he is always going to bring to the table a disciplined football team. And in a lot of ways, that's going to win you a lot of games, being a disciplined football team. Look at Colorado today. You played a coaching staff for TCU that has more continuity, a TCU team that has more continuity everywhere. But Colorado was buttoned up and they were disciplined, which speaks to coaching. And they got a big win. But Utah, really buttoned up program. Derek, I love Shadeur, but we still got to give respect and everything to Caleb, right? And I'm not saying Shadeur is unbelievable. But Caleb Williams still deserves his flowers. He is an unbelievable quarterback, unbelievable athlete. But the Pac-12, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk the quarterbacks of the Pac-12. When Cam Rising gets back healthy, you're going to have Cam Rising, Shadeur Sanders, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, Caleb Williams. My goodness, Jaden Rashada looked really fun during Arizona State's debut. He looks like he's going to do great things this year. I bet Florida kind of wishes he was with them, though in fairness to Graham Mertz is not the reason they lost that football game. Graham Mertz did what Graham Mertz needed to do. Yeah, Derek, I believe in Coach Prime because I'm from an area where he lived, and I've kind of heard stories of people who have met him, who have shaken hands with him, who have known him. I've never heard them say a bad word, ever. I've only ever heard that he was super positive. I know what he did for the community here was super positive. In fact, Coach Mathis, actually, Derek Jones, went to Gainesville High School, where I graduated high school from, the cornerback coach for Colorado. So, and he's actually one of my good friend's uncle. So there's a little bit of a tie for me to Colorado just because their cornerback coach is from the hometown I'm from. So, yeah. Hall of Fame, my guy, thank you for being in here. He says Coach Prime is on brand today and every day, period. I saw earlier, if I was not mistaken, I think I saw Jay in here. Guys, Hall of Fame Media, Unfair Sports, 2 awesome YouTube channels, 2 great content creators that I think you should give your time. They do a great job. You can catch them over here on this channel. Plenty. You need to give them their due over on their channels. They put in great work. Derek Jones says, shout out to Well Off Media. Can you believe that? How cool is that, first off? And just the whole way they're viewing the current landscape of college football, I think is really cool, top to bottom. The way that they're telling players to market themselves. And I know that's rubbing some people the wrong way. And I think if you're someone who embraces that, I myself am someone who embraces that. The one thing we do need to understand is that these are large sweeping changes to a game that's largely been based on tradition. And anytime you make large sweeping changes to anything based on tradition, there will be pushback. So we need to understand where the pushback is coming from, but that doesn't diminish that it's really interesting and it's awesome the way they're marketing themselves, the way they're doing everything at Colorado. It's awesome. Well Off Media has done a fantastic job. The way that Coach Prime has encouraged the players to be active. Hey, after you get your work done in the classroom, after you get your work done on the field, be active. If you want to stream on Twitch, go stream. Build a brand for yourself. Awesome. I love to see it. I love to see it because in a lot of ways, it's kind of imparting the very harsh but very real truth that this isn't forever. College football is beautiful. It's what we all love. It's what we all gather here today. We're all here today on a Saturday. It's 178 people in here viewing, fans of various teams, and we're all in here having a great time. Build a brand. This isn't forever. Build something that you can use this to make something lasting. That's great advice, guys. It is. Whether you're for it or against it, understand where it's coming from, why the advice is being given, and the age we live in, where this is the time where you can brand yourself very easily through means such as Twitter. I refuse to call it X. Through TikTok, through Facebook is dead, let's be very honest. Through Instagram. I don't know if that's still alive either, but it's certainly there. You have all these different avenues to market yourself, YouTube. And I think it's great that he's encouraging it. I really do. CU has mad speed. Man, Timothy, that's an understatement, man. That is an understatement. And from where do you want it? The speed is present in the running back room where Dylan Edwards, first off, Dylan Edwards was a track star coming out of high school. We knew this. I always talked about because Cavassier Smoke and Dylan Edwards committed to the Buffs around, I believe, a similar time. Maybe my timeline is off there, but for whatever reason, I feel like they committed to the Buffaloes within a few weeks of each other, Cavassier Smoke and Dylan Edwards. And I remember when one committed after the other, I sat down and I was like, hey, they have a lightning and thunder that you got to watch out for. Dylan Edwards is going to be spectacular, and he was. He was. He was great. Inside Media, they do a great job. I'm Dwoob. Forgive me. But yes, I completely agree. They do a great job. What about TikTok? Yeah. I think he was just pointing out TikTok's a great way to market yourself. For Texas, I need to see it to believe it type of deal because I've seen many times. Yeah, courts, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that for any team. Look, transparency is what I'm about. My team, this is a general college football channel. We talk everybody. My team is Alabama. But you bet your sweet bippy it's a show me year for Alabama. Absolutely, it's a show me year for Alabama. And Alabama had a good year last year. Look, I know Alabama is expected to go to the college football playoff every single year and win a national championship, this, that, and the other. I understand that's the standard. But let's be very objective here. Let's all come together as a family and sit around the table and be objective. How many coaches are getting a pay raise if they only lose 2 games by a combined 4 points and then slaughter a conference champion in a bowl game? A lot of coaches are getting a raise. Now, I understand that a lot of coaches' expectations is not the expectations that Nick Saban and Bama have created. It's a very real point. Both ideologies can exist in the same reality. 2 things can be true. But even though Bama is coming off of a good year, it's still a show me year for Bama. New quarterback, you got to replace Will Anderson, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. I'm over the moon excited. Questions can be so much fun. Questions can be good. Generates intrigue. For me, that's great. But it's still a show me year. Derek says, who do I have winning the national championship? Derek, I'll probably answer that after week 2. I just don't know yet because I like Michigan. I think they return a lot of talent. They return both their running backs, and they are one of the top teams in college football that had a good defense, that has their offensive firepower, and returns a quarterback. We look at Georgia. Georgia doesn't return a quarterback. We look at Alabama. They don't return a quarterback. Ohio State, they don't return a quarterback. Clemson returns a quarterback, but they have a new offensive coordinator. Can't wait to see what that looks like. I think that's going to be really exciting. So there's a lot of teams that have some really intriguing ability this year. I just need to see it all come together. But Derek, I'm one of those people. I don't typically put out lists before preseason or anything like that because we'll talk about that after. Does Miami beat A&M? Maybe. I need to see what A&M looks like tonight. If A&M's offense comes together, Panama, we all need to understand, as much as I will get my memes in about A&M, because let's be honest, they're low-hanging fruit. No offense to A&M fans. I want A&M to be good. There's not a college football team out there I don't want to do good, even Auburn, as much as it hurts me to say that, because if Auburn is good, the SEC is probably good, right? Like, if Auburn is good and Bama beats Auburn, that's a better win for Bama. Weinman, I do agree with you here, to a point, right? To a point. What I will say, Panama, is this. If A&M's passing attack comes together, they have one of the most dangerous receiving cores in all of college football that nobody is talking about. You're talking about Moose Muhammad, you're talking about Evan Stewart, and you're talking about Anais Smith. Those are 3 guys that are unbelievably talented. What happened, Master? Did I miss something? So, yeah, I love their wide receiving core, but your wide receiving core is only good if you can get them the ball. And the one thing we need to understand about A&M's offense is they have talent at a lot of different places, but we haven't seen scheme be able to help that talent, which is why the Bobby Petrino hire. I thought this was a Colorado Buff safe haven. This is a college football fan safe haven hidden. You're safe here. If you're a college football fan, you're safe here. This is a college football safe haven. You're safe here, my man. You're safe here. You're more than welcome here. You have a spot around the table. But going back to A&M, my question for A&M is, one, is Petrino calling the plays? And if so, whose playbook is he using? That's what I'm really interested in seeing. A&M has been a good defense. They have talent on defense. They've been more consistent on the defensive side of the football. We need to see the consistency carry over to the offensive side of the football. Why do you think A&M beat LSU last year when they were red hot? Because eventually those 5 stars started figured out. No, and I think you are onto something, Weinman, here. I like Weigman. I think he's a capable quarterback. My questions with A&M, Weinman, are not with the players so much as it is with the coaching. And we could agree to disagree there, but that's the area where I still have a big question mark for A&M. And hopefully it gets answered in a good way. But that's going to be a great game. So it's going to be a great game. Here goes Truth with his OU slander. Hey, what's college football fans in here of opposite teams if there's not a little good faith trolling, right? That's why I said let's wait a few weeks. You definitely get a better idea after 5 or 6 games either way, right? Yeah, look, you need a few weeks. Let's hit some comments. Nobody's saying they're a playoff team. Give them their due today, though. Oh, okay, I see what y'all are talking about, Hall of Fame. Ryan Day should call plays again. I'm excited to see Ohio State this year, man. Very, very excited to see Ohio State. Always going to be a great time with Ohio State. They have so much talent. And I'm really interested in seeing that defense because you're talking about a JT Tuimalau who, I mean, that came down to the wire with Bama after him. That's just going to be such a fun team to watch this year. Now they named a quarterback, but I will say this. I am very excited to see what happens when Devin Brown gets in the game. He's not the quarterback they named. But Devin Brown is a name that I'm really excited about. Very excited about. Caleb Witten, thank you for joining us this afternoon. He says, OU scored 73 points today. Do you think OU will win 10 games in 2023? Look, you've got a very favorable schedule. Oklahoma rolled a very favorable schedule, which in some ways is good before you go to the SEC because you can get a lot worked out. Where OU is, we don't quite know yet. Right? What we do know is you handled business in the exact way you should have today. You came in today with your lunch pail and got passing grades all the way around. You did phenomenal today. If you're an OU player, if you're an OU coach. Next week, we're going to learn a little bit more, and we'll learn a little bit more as the season goes on. I think there's no reason OU doesn't win 9 games this year. And I've said that even before this week happened. So that's going to be something we need to continue watching. But next week against SMU is going to be a very good team. Very good game. SMU looked like they were having a fun game against Louisiana Tech. Although I did see someone from Louisiana Tech deliver an absolute headshot. Absolute headshot. Not literally like hitting him in the head, but just a huge hit. Is that a Guinness logo? I don't have a Guinness logo. Which logo are you talking about, Weinman? I don't have a Guinness logo in here. I should. Yeah, like I said, Hidden, you're always welcome in here. It's a safe haven for college football fans. We're all in here together talking about college football. Happy that the off season is gone. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to just about do it for us. We've been on for an hour and a half. I'm going to go watch some of these college football games. Y'all enjoy your Saturday with your friends, with your family. Enjoy week 1 of college football being back, the inaugural kickoff Saturday. If you enjoyed your time here, do me a favor, hit a like. It really helps us out as content creators continue to grow our platforms. If you really enjoyed your time here, why don't you stop and subscribe? I'd love to have you on future content, future live streams. To give you all a quick heads up, we will be live this evening on the Fan Addicts channel, 9 o'clock Central Standard Time, going over everything college football today. Steven says, how does it feel to be talking about games? It feels right. I definitely am going to go watch the Ohio State game, Blood. I have it recording. I'm going to watch that. But yeah, we'll be back this evening with the Fan Addict. Might be back tomorrow. We'll see. Might not. Might take tomorrow off. You already know, Monday, 10 o'clock Central Standard Time. We'll be here through the haze kicks off as we talk about all the games over the weekend, start to preview some general college football news. We'll see you during the week. That's it. See ya. Spinning Wheel of Doom incoming.